then takes us straight to item 7, the key performance results for October 2021. So Peter Ryan would normally be presenting this. He is off sick today. Lynn, you're going to present this instead. So any introductory comments that you'd like to make, and then we'll move to some questions. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm very happy to present the performance report for October. I'll provide a brief summary and then very happy to answer any questions. So when we look at the overview, the overall community levels of service are up on the last year, but still quite just shy of the 85% target. So they're at 84%. We see the impact of COVID in a number of areas, first of all in visitor numbers and also in foregone revenue in rec and sport. There is a separate capital report, and Ruth Cable, my colleague, will be able to present on that, as will heads of service, so I will not cover that in detail in this session. We also have a separate financial report. Overall, from a performance perspective, our financial position is positive. Leah Scales will be presenting on that, so again, I won't take much time there. In relation to the bubble diagram, which is on the second page of the report, I'd just like to comment on the outliers in relation to transport and Three Waters. So in relation to transport exceptions, they relate to two things. One is the access to key destination types by walking and increasing the share of non-car modes, and also the resident survey. We have not undertaken the resident survey at the moment. That is due to come through in April, May, and according to a previously agreed approach, we are flagging as amber those things which have been amber last year, and until there is evidence that they will change, they will continue as amber. Likewise, for water supply, the exceptions relate to average consumption of drinking water, the percentage of real water loss, and also resident surveys. And for the same reason, we are flagging those amber for the moment, but the resident survey will in fact come through in April, May next year, and we will be in a better position to advise you. This reflects a relatively conservative approach. We would prefer to be transparent and reflect what we estimate performance to be in anticipation of evidence, rather than giving a falsely optimistic view at this point in the year. We are committed to putting mitigations in place for those levels of service that are not on track. This is reviewed on a monthly basis by the executive leadership team, and we had just such a discussion yesterday. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. So, I mean, clearly there are some COVID impacts in here, which are called out well in the report. Thanks very much for the introduction. And any issues around the supply chain cost escalation or substitution issues, we'll cover those off with Ruth in the capital report rather than here. So, any questions for Lynn on this report? Sarah.
Kia ora, Lynn. You may not be able to address that, but do you know why we switched our 15-minute neighbourhood definition? Like, I know that this changing definition has been what's had some of the impact there, but it's changed the number of sort of kilometres per hour that people will walk.
Right. No, I'm sorry, I'm not able to address that, but what I can do is take that and get the relevant information and come back to you.
Yeah, because it's gone from 5 to 4 kilometres an hour or something like that. The net's here.
Perfect, thank you.
I can't answer it though. Sorry, but I can say, look, we're looking to do a little update on the 15-minute neighbourhood. Put the links into the report in the next UDAT report, so we can address that question in the next UDAT report, which is next week.
That would be really cool. And yeah, when that's addressed, can we just look at the ability for people to not just walk but bike as well?
That's what they've done. Both the maps look at them. So that it's 15 minutes. So there's two maps, one that looks at walking and one that looks at biking.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Yanni.
Okay. I see in the rec and events, obviously, we've had an impact with COVID where a number of our events have been cancelled. At the same time, we've also got the community trying to organise a number of vaccine events. And I just wondered whether we can give any support as an organisation to supporting community-led vaccination events to try and increase the rates of vaccination in the areas that have low vaccination rates.
So yes, we already do a number of support activities, and in particular when the campaign for 90% for Canterbury was launched, Council was very, very active in working with community groups and other organisations, including all CCOs, to get the message out. So we have been very extensively involved in promotion and also working with community organisations to support them in initiatives that they are taking to support vaccination rates.
So, okay, it's just that I did put the question in a few weeks ago around whether we had a resource to make available to community groups, and I was told that we don't, and that it was a matter for the CDHP. But I'm just aware that a number of groups have held vaccination events, and they're also dealing with a myriad of other things on their day-to-day basis. And we've got event staff that obviously are having events that aren't being held. So I just wondered whether we could do a little bit more in that space. But
What I can do is talk to the community support teams. I think what we assessed was that the most valuable and impactful thing that we could do as council was to enhance and multiply the communication and awareness because of the nature of our resources. But I take your point that there may well be some additional things that we can do on the ground with community organisations. So I will pick that up with the relevant head of service.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Aaron?
Yeah, just on the bubble diagram, it says it's an overview of performance of the top 10 activities. And if you looked at that, you go, economic development's doing really, really well, because it sits at the top. But it's only the money budgeted and the money spent, isn't it? It's not the actual outcome.
So
because we've still got the lowest GDP of all the main centres. So as a punter, you'd look at this and you go, oh, great, we must be doing really well. But then when you look at the numbers, we're not as good as we could potentially be.
I think this is a question of what we're trying to measure. So what this bubble diagram reflects is the actual levels of service. Many of those are delivered through Christchurch NZ, and they relate to quite specific activities. So it's not GDP growth or economic development in that broader sense. I haven't got them at the tip of my fingers, but the specific initiatives are things like working with business organisations to support entrepreneurial development, and also training and other elements of underpinning economic development rather than the overall GDP or other economic outcomes.
Right. Okay. So
that's why we are meeting the levels of service, but that doesn't necessarily correlate directly to the economic outcomes that you're referencing.
So we should be more careful of what levels of service we set, because you can do really well on something that doesn't have much impact.
I think that's a valid reflection and something we need to bear in mind across all levels of service when we're looking to establish activity plans for the next LTP.
Great point. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne?
Just following up on that, because one of the levels of service that sits behind economic development is the innovation ecosystem, which has been highly successful, but it isn't going to produce the immediate outcomes that's going to support businesses and their growth trajectory from early startup all the way through to quite significant companies. And the model's very successful, not just here but internationally. So we wouldn't want to undermine that work by setting a level of service that can't be, an outcome that can't be measured instantly.
Yep. So I think that's a very valid point, because when I've talked to Christchurch NZ, their vision and the impact they're having is over decades.
Yep.
And so we need to make an investment in the short term to grow those businesses to ensure that, in fact, that entrepreneurial ecosystem is adequately supported. So what we're looking in the levels of service is a bit of an interim measure. How are we tracking in relation to that overall goal? But we're not going to be able to necessarily meet that on an annual basis.
But also, I think one of the things that I noticed when I went and visited the different elements of the ecosystem is that every single one was in partnership with another. So ARA, Canterbury University, which you might know about yourself, and also the Ministry of Awesome, absolutely interconnected, sort of almost like a pipeline that supports innovation.
So I
mean, our contribution is only one element.
Yes.
And so if it's a three-legged stool with ARA and the Canterbury University, or a four-legged one with Ministry of Awesome, you take away one of the legs of the stool and the outcome might be undermined completely.
It is very much a holistic approach,
Yeah.
and our levels of service are a microcosm of that bigger picture.
Yeah, thank you.
And in terms of the work that Christchurch NZ do, we've got to remember that our levels of service drive some of that activity, but the letter of expectation and the statement of intent drive a lot of the work that Christchurch NZ do outside of levels of service that would be reported here.
That's right.
Yeah. Jimmy.
On page 24 and 25, even the end of year, the survey result not yet come back from the residents, sorry. But regarding the council responsiveness to the water supply problem, I'm concerned that now it's more and more warmer. Because I try to get an answer up to now, a couple of months, I have still not yet get an answer. Regarding the Dunton the suction tank repairment update status, but the staff mission need to engage with the contract, but almost 2 months didn't get any of the information. So I just don't know why we are lost the control, because the community resident particularly concerned this one, long time. Yes. This one.
Okay, so I don't have the details with me right now. What I can do is talk to the head of Three Waters and see whether we can get you a response as quickly as possible. Can I just clarify the particular one that you're looking at? It's page 25. Is it the reliability of quality of water?
Council responsibility to the water supply, the resident concern is the tank. It affect those wider only areas.
Okay, I will take a note and come back to you on that.
Thank you.
All right. Nothing further? Just on the subject of performance, I note that we had an email from Dawn on the 19th of November advising us that our Customer Services Centre had won a national award for customer service in the National CRM Awards, not only this year, but for the second year in a row. So can we congratulate you and the team on that? Certainly a huge achievement, and it's good to see that well recognised with those national awards. So well done, and thank you.
Thank you. Pass that on to Sarah Newman and her team. Thank you
Great,
so much.
thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So I'm happy to move the recommendation here. Pauline will second. Is there any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. All right, so now